Every year, billions of people celebrate Easter, and every year, the same arguments play out. Believers and skeptics talking past each other, neither side looking at the actual data. So we changed the approach. We fed every major historical source, Roman records, Jewish documents, early manuscripts, forensic analyses, and over 2,000 years of academic scholarship into AI. And we asked it one question. What actually happened on Easter Sunday, 33 AD? The data was not what we expected. Before we get into the findings, let's be clear about the methodology. This isn't theology. This isn't faith. This is historical forensics. The same discipline used to evaluate Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, and every other ancient figure. Historians have a standard test for ancient claims. They ask 3 questions. First, how many independent sources corroborate the event? Second, how close in time to the event were those sources written? Third, do hostile witnesses, people with every reason to deny it, confirm any part of the account? Apply that test to Caesar crossing the Rubicon. 3 sources. Written decades later. 0 hostile confirmation. We accept it as history. Now apply the same test to the resurrection. Sources. Over a dozen independent accounts. Time gap. Paul's letter to the Corinthians, the earliest written record, dates to within 20 years of the event. That's not legend territory. That's within living memory of eyewitnesses. And hostile confirmation? We'll get to that, because here's where the data gets strange. The Roman Empire was a bureaucratic killing machine. They crucified thousands, and they were exceptionally good at one thing: producing bodies to end movements. When a revolutionary died, Rome displayed the corpse. It was standard procedure. Proof of death. End of story. Jesus of Nazareth died under Roman authority. The movement didn't die with him. It exploded. The most logical response? Produce the body. Jerusalem was a city of maybe 80,000 people. The tomb was known. The Roman seal was on it. Guards were posted. They never produced it. Not in 33 AD, not in 40 AD, not in 70 AD, when Rome flattened Jerusalem and had access to every record, every crypt, every corner of the city. The movement was preached openly in Jerusalem, the one place a fabricated resurrection story would collapse immediately if the body existed. It didn't collapse. What did the authorities say instead? According to Matthew's Gospel, and corroborated by the 2nd century Jewish writer Justin Martyr, the official counter-narrative was that the disciples stole the body. Not that the body was still there, not that Jesus didn't die. They confirmed the tomb was empty and argued about who took him. In 1 Corinthians 15, written around 55 AD, Paul records a creed that most scholars date to within 2 to 5 years of the crucifixion. He lists people who saw Jesus after the resurrection. He names individuals. And then he says this: he appeared to more than 500 brothers and sisters at the same time, most of whom are still living. That's a falsifiable claim. In the ancient world, you don't write most of whom are still living unless those people are actually alive and can be questioned. Paul was essentially saying, go check. The witnesses are still there. No ancient critic responded by interviewing those witnesses and disproving the claim. Conspiracy theorists know that large conspiracies fall apart. More conspirators means more pressure points. More pressure points means someone eventually cracks. Cold case investigators point to a consistent historical pattern. People will die for what they believe is true. But people don't die for what they know is a lie. Every one of the original disciples, except John, died a violent death. rather than recant. Not a single ancient record exists of any disciple ever recanting when recanting would have saved their life. Here is one of the most forensically compelling details in the entire account, and almost no one talks about it. In first-century Roman Jewish culture, a woman's testimony was not considered legally admissible. A woman could not testify in court. If you were fabricating a resurrection story in 33 AD and you wanted it to be believed, you would never, under any circumstances, make women your primary witnesses. You would use men, preferably multiple men with social standing. All four Gospels agree. The first witnesses to the empty tomb were women. Historians call this the criterion of embarrassment. If a detail is embarrassing or inconvenient to the people telling the story, and they include it anyway, that's a strong signal they're telling you what actually happened, not what they wish had happened. No first-century forger would have chosen women as the lead witnesses. The only reason to report it that way is because that's what occurred. Modern astronomy has given us something remarkable: the ability to reconstruct the exact calendar of ancient history. We can calculate the position of the moon, the occurrence of Passover, the days of the week, going back thousands of years. The Gospel accounts describe the crucifixion occurring on a Passover Friday and the resurrection on a Sunday. Cross-referencing Roman calendar records, Jewish Passover calculations, and astronomical data, scholars have narrowed the most likely date to April 3rd, 33 AD. On that date, Passover fell on a Friday. The moon was full. A partial lunar eclipse, described in early Christian writings as the moon turning blood red, is astronomically confirmed for that evening. The data doesn't prove the resurrection, but it confirms the account is anchored in real, verifiable historical time, not mythology, not allegory. Something happened in Jerusalem that weekend. Something that set off a chain of events that would reshape the entire world. In 2003, Oxford philosopher Richard Swinburne published a formal Bayesian analysis of the resurrection. Bayesian probability is the same mathematical framework used in medical diagnostics, intelligence analysis, and machine learning. It calculates the probability of a hypothesis being true given all available evidence. Swinburne's conclusion, and he is a rigorous academic philosopher, not an evangelist, was that the probability of the resurrection, given all the available historical evidence, is over 97%. Now, his critics have challenged the priors he used, the initial assumptions he fed into the model. That's a legitimate academic debate. Change the priors and the number changes. But here's what matters. Even critics who strongly contest his methodology rarely push the probability below 50%, because the evidence is that substantial. Think about that. The most contested event in human history, evaluated by a formal probability model, lands above a coin flip even for the skeptics. So what does the AI say? When we fed the evidence matrix into a structured analysis, historical corroboration score, hostile witness confirmation rate, conspiracy collapse risk, archaeological alignment, calendar verification, the model returned a consistent result across multiple runs. The most historically coherent explanation for all the available data is that the tomb was empty and the disciples genuinely believed they encountered Jesus alive after his death. The model cannot tell you whether the resurrection was supernatural. That sits outside the reach of data. But it can tell you that the naturalistic explanations, mass hallucination, stolen body, mistaken identity, all score significantly lower on historical coherence than the account as written. Here is where we have to be honest about what data can and can't do. Data can tell you what happened, It cannot tell you what to do about it. It can tell you that the evidence is unusually strong. It cannot make the decision for you. It can narrow the probability, but it cannot cross the final gap. Because if the resurrection happened, really happened, then this isn't just history. It's the most important event in human history, and the implications are personal. 2,000 years ago, something happened in Jerusalem on a Sunday morning that no one expected. 12 frightened people who had watched their leader executed became the founders of the fastest-growing movement in human history. Willing to die rather than say it didn't happen. The data doesn't demand faith, but it does demand an explanation. What's yours? Drop your answer in the comments. If you want to go deeper on any of these data points, the forensic evidence, the philosophical arguments, the historical records, let us know and we'll cover it. And if this made you think, share it with someone who wouldn't usually click on something like this. That's exactly who needs to see it.